Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Janani. Today I'm going to show you guys how I made these cherry blossom earrings. I'll be using Primo and Souffle for this project. This gorgeous purple will be my background color, and these two for the flowers. This is for the stem and this is for the petal. These flowers are very easy to make, and you can adopt this technique to make many different styles. By using a little bit of pink clay, I created a really small teardrop. I kept the top of this teardrop fairly flat and I sectioned it into 5 equal parts. Then I extended this cut a little bit towards the bottom. Then I used the dotting tool in rolling motion to push out the clay from the middle. Then I kept working on it so the petals will be defined. And I created a small hole in the middle. Using the needle tool, I created a little indent in the middle of each petal. I also added some scorings on the petals. Then I cut the extra clay as closer to the flower as I could. Then I continued to make these flowers from both white and pink. And I believe this technique is used to make fondant flowers, but I think many techniques that they use on fondant will work just fine on polymer clay as well. After I had a handful of flowers, I rolled my background clay on the passer machine on the 4th thickest setting. I'll be using my extruder to create branches. First batch I extruded was a little too thick, so I tried it again using a different die. It was still a little bit thicker, but I worked it a little bit by hand and began placing it on the background clay. And I just freehanded these branches. After the sheet is covered with branches, I began placing my flowers. I made sure to push my flower in slightly so it won't fall off. And at one point I did run out of flowers and I made them as I went, and it took forever. I think it took me about 3 to 4 hours just to make these flowers. But at the end, it's all so worth it. So yeah.
An eternity later. Much later.
Finally, the whole sheet is covered in flowers. Next step is to start shading the flowers. I use soft pastels. I use color red and white, and then mix it together to create a nice gorgeous pink shade. Using a fine brush, I applied the shading to the middle of the flowers. And after all the shading's done, I'm going to be using some liquid clay to attach the pistil, the middle of the flowers. If I were to put more clay in the middle of the flower, it will have a hard time adhering because we use pastels. I created small balls of yellow clay and added to the middle of the flower. Make sure you check the description box. I have all the tools and supplies listed down. After the slab is finished, I use some rubbing alcohol and a cotton bud to clean up any lint. Next, I cut the shapes using my cookie cutters. I learned a really good lesson here because it was so sad cutting these pieces. So next time I would probably cut the shapes first and then add the flowers and branches. But I still do think they turned out really cute and unique. And I also cut some pieces off of solid colored clay. I felt like some of the spaces were empty, so I pulled some flowers off of the scrap clay and added to these empty spaces. Now it was time to bake my pieces. You can follow the instructions on the packaging. I have a really old oven, so I bake my pieces for 1 hour in 225 Fahrenheit. And if you have trouble baking your pieces, I recommend you bake some samples and figure out your ideal temperature and time. To sand my pieces, I'm going to be using the wet sanding method. If you want to see me sanding in detail, I recommend you check out my last video. This sander is actually a nail sander, but it works really well for these delicate polymer clay pieces. And I use this attachment to drill the holes for the jump rings. I'm gonna be using my favorite Sculpey gloss glaze to finish these pieces. I used a soft paintbrush and my needle tool to guide and help me keep the pieces in place. Make sure you get in all those nooks and crannies. Next, I assembled my pieces using jump rings. And I also use this Loctite super glue to attach my earring posts. That is the end of this tutorial. I hope you guys liked it. I certainly enjoyed making these. Make sure you subscribe, like, and follow me on Instagram at FernMitchHandmade. I'll see you guys next week.